Hey friends, Andrew Fantasia here. I know normally on this channel I never stop yakking away about Leo Tolstoy's greatest magnum opus, War and Peace. Well, today I want to stop talking about that for a minute and talk about something I don't usually talk about, the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Namely, the Tesseract and how we can trace it throughout history. Let's get started. This is the only cube-shaped thing that I own. Don't judge me. Ba-da-ba-ba-da-ba-ba. Welcome to this bite-sized episode of Thumb Together. As always, if you enjoy the video, please feel free to give it a thumbs up and give some love to that subscribe button as well. Today's topic is going to be the Tesseract. Let's talk about it, because the Tesseract has a very long and storied history, as do all the Infinity Stones, I'm sure, but this one in particular catches everybody's eye. Now I'm going to put a forewarning up here. Major spoilers are going to be ahead for every movie in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, including Captain Marvel. So if you've not seen Captain Marvel, be warned, we're going to spoil the hell out of it. Here we go. So having said that, let's start at the beginning and see if we can't trace the path of the Space Stone all the way from the dawn of time to the current snap. Here we go. So, according to what the Collector tells the Guardians and Guardians of the Galaxy, the Space Stone, just like all the other Infinity Stones, was created at some point thousands and thousands of eons ago by the Celestials, when the Celestials were doing their thing, being giant steampunk-looking folks who just lumber around on planets, holding scepters and making things happen with their god powers. I don't know, look, I'm not a Marvel writer, I don't know what their deal is, okay? Just bear with me here. But the moral of the story is they made the Infinity Stones, the Space Stone among them, and then for many, many, many years, I can assume, stuff happened that we are not privy to. And at some point in time, the Space Stone fell into the hands of Odin, King and Lord of Asgard. Now, when Odin obtained the Space Stone, it was already encased in what we know as the Cosmic Cube, which is, I guess, just sort of there to hold its power. I don't know. Again, I'm not a Marvel writer, but Odin got a hold of the Cosmic Cube and he kept it with him on Asgard for another indeterminate period of time, at which point something happened that made him think, this thing is pretty powerful and really dangerous. I think I should hide it. So he decides to hide it on Midgard, which is where we live. That's Earth. We're Midgard. Hooray! Yay for us. We have a cool Viking name for our planet instead of Earth. We literally named our planet after dirt. Creative. Now we can assume Odin hid it in Norway or thereabouts because that's where the Vikings hid everything. And in Captain America, the first one, Red Skull is searching Europe for the Cosmic Cube. And eventually he ends up finding it. And there's a whole lot of tussling and feuding and fighting involved. And this wimpy kid named Steve Rogers gets, pumped full of steroids, and all of a sudden he's just super jacked, and he gets all these hot British ladies to touch his chest. And the moral of the story is, if you're a super jacked soldier, you can go get hot British ladies to touch your chest and then fight Nazis and defeat them, even if the Nazis have red skull faces that are really scary. Now, during their final battle, Red Skull and Captain America end up fighting over the Cosmic Cube, and Red Skull ends up trying to harness its power by holding it in his bare hands. Turns out, not a good idea. Because it is the Space Stone, and it's used primarily for creating holes that allow you to travel from one spot to another spot, the Red Skull found himself suddenly whisked away to another dimension, somewhere out in the vast, vast reaches of space, where we never see him until Infinity War, where he shows up doing a really damn good impression of one of Sauron's Nazgul, just kind of chilling on Pride Rock and saying, yeah, if you want the Orange Stone, you gotta throw something off Pride Rock. This is my job now, I guess. Meanwhile, back in World War II, the Cosmic Cube fell from his grasp when he disappeared, burned a hole through the bottom of the plane, and plummeted down somewhere into the, I want to say, Arctic Ocean? Because that's where Captain America himself ended up, frozen for many, many years. Now, Howard Stark, the father of Tony Stark, was a friend and acquaintance of Captain America's, and he wanted to help a brother out, so he was searching the Arctic Ocean for any traces of his missing friend. During this search, Howard Stark stumbled across the Tesseract itself. It was still there, just chilling at the bottom of the sea, doing a whole lot of nothing, and Howard Stark was like, yoink, and he took it, and it became property of S.H.I.E.L.D. Now, at some point between that point in time and the year 1989, the Tesseract was put to use by something called Project Pegasus. And this is where Captain Marvel comes in, because Project Pegasus was a scientific experiment where they were trying to harness the power of the Tesseract to create better military weapons, such as planes and, jet engines, things like that. Project Pegasus was making decent stride with this, mainly because they had somebody like this lady on their side. And this lady pretended to just be a humble scientist doing her duty for the good of the American cause, but she was, in fact, a powerful alien, one of the most powerful beings in the galaxy, known as Mar-Vell. And Mar-Vell had her own agendas going on, and she managed to harness a bit of the Tesseract's power into an airplane engine. But when that airplane crashed and was shot down by the Star Force, she ends up dying. Carol Danvers, who is her pilot, who got mixed up in all this nonsense, is held at gunpoint and ends up using the power that was in that Tesseract-ish engine to become the next Captain Mar-Vell. Teaming up with Nick Fury, Captain Mar-Vell decides, hey, we got to go find the source of that engine's power, which ends up being the Tesseract, which is on an orbital station, presumably built by Pegasus, that's just floating around the Earth at the moment. A struggle ensues because Yon-Rogg and the other members of the Star Force are really, really greedy, and they want to get their hands on that Tesseract and the power it holds. And Captain Mar-Vell and her friends Nick Fury and Maria Rambeau, along with some really nice Skrulls and a hell of a terrifying cat, manage to pull one over on them. Goose the cat, this character right here, swallows the Tesseract whole in order to keep it safe from Yon-Rogg and the Star Force. And then once that battle is over and everybody has a great time and they have barbecue and they go their separate ways, Goose the cat decides it's high time to hawk it back up, which he does, vomiting the intact cosmic cube safely onto Nick Fury's desk. That was 1995, and from that point onwards, the cosmic cube was safe in the hands of Nick Fury and S.H.I.E.L.D. Until the events of Thor happened, the first movie, and Nick Fury and S.H.I.E.L.D. start to realize, hey, there's a bunch of Asgardians out there with crazy Viking god powers. They have ice giant friends and dark elf friends and God knows what else, and all of that stuff could potentially bring its drama here to Earth. Nick Fury's like, I ain't having that. If we're going to have some crazy-ass folk like that coming to my planet, I want to make sure we have the means necessary to defend ourselves against people like that. So he contacts a man who had close contact with Thor and the Asgardians, a man by the name of Dr. Erik Selvig. And in the post-credit scene for Thor, we see Nick Fury ask Selvig, hey, here's this cosmic cube. Do you think it's possible we can harness its power to create weapons that'll help us fight threats from other worlds and dimensions like Asgard? Dr. Selvig thinks, hey, that's a cool idea. Loki, who is invisible and watching all this, also thinks, hey, this is a cool idea. Fast forward to the beginning of Avengers 1. Dr. Selvig and S.H.I.E.L.D. are hard at work doing just what Nick Fury asked, trying to harness the power of the Tesseract to build weapons of mass destruction, when all of a sudden, who shows up but Loki, and he's like, woo, fooled you, I'm an evil man, and he hypnotizes a bunch of S.H.I.E.L.D. folks, he killed a bunch of others, and he goes and he steals the Tesseract, and he's like, this is mine now, because guess what? He had some kind of cosmic encounter with some very nasty people way out in the reaches of space who asked him to help them secure a path for their alien forces, known as the Chitauri, get them to Earth so they can invade Earth. Loki's like, sure, the Space Stone is the perfect way to do that. So that's exactly what Loki uses it for. He puts the cosmic cube in this kind of portal antenna thing that he sticks on top of Avengers Tower, and that in turn opens a portal in the sky above Manhattan through which the Chitauri are able to plow into our dimension and start attacking all kinds of shit. And that's when the Avengers come together to stop them. Cue the Alan Silvestri theme. Everything is great. After the Avengers defeat Loki, Thor takes the cosmic cube back into his possession and says, I'm bringing this back to Asgard, where my father can guard it. There you go, Marvel. Chris Hemsworth starts asking for too much money, you know who to call next. So he brings it back to Asgard, where it's safely stored in Odin's vault, and it remains there for many, many movies until Thor Ragnarok. And during the climactic final sequence of Thor Ragnarok, wherein Loki has now teamed up with Thor, Valkyrie, and Hulk, and they're trying to evacuate all of the Asgardians from this terrible threat that's just going to destroy their realm, Loki runs into the vault to grab some stuff when he sees, among other things, the cosmic cube sitting there, totally unprotected, and he's like, you know what? I'm having that. Why not? So, giving into his selfish nature, Loki grabs the cosmic cube and takes it with him. Shortly after they evacuate Asgard, the Asgardians are floating through space when all of a sudden they are accosted by a giant ship belonging to Thanos and the Black Order. Not good news for them. After Thanos kills half of the Asgardians on the ship because he's got this weird obsession with balance, he starts asking them for information about the Space Stone. He knows the Asgardians possessed that relic, and he wants it to complete his totally awesome collection on his Infinity Gauntlet. And of course, Loki is right there holding the cosmic cube saying, well, I do kind of have this. So please stop torturing my brother and I'll let you have it. So Thanos stops torturing Thor. He grabs the cosmic cube, crushes it within his enormous purple fist, and pulls out the shiny blue Space Stone, which he then attaches to his Infinity Gauntlet, and he's one step closer to having the whole complete collection, you guys. And that stone stayed firmly entrenched in Thanos' gauntlet for the entirety of Infinity War, up until the snap. Now, the gauntlet was damaged during the snap, but we don't know if it was fully destroyed. As for the stones themselves, their fate is also up in the air, so who's to say? That is where we leave off. That is, chronologically, everything we know about the journey of this Space Stone throughout the ages. Now, of course, there are still a few unanswered questions here. For starters, how and why did Odin manage to get a hold of the Space Stone way back in the day? Is that something we might possibly learn about in the Eternals movie? Mayhaps. I hope so. How and why did Odin decide that he was going to hide it on Earth? You know, what could be so threatening that he thought Earth was a safer place for the Space Stone than Asgard? Also, exactly when, how, and why did the Space Stone become ensconced within the Cosmic Cube? I mean, I'm not going to lie, the Cosmic Cube looks really cool. It looks a lot cooler than just a little hunk of blue rock, but where did that come from? How did that come about? We want to know. Inquiring minds are asking. Last but not least, what will become of the Space Stone and the other 5 Infinity Stones once the events of Avengers Endgame are all said and done? Do they get destroyed? I hope not, because the Eye of Agamotto is kind of important to the whole Doctor Strange mythos, but I guess we'll see what happens. But thanks so much for watching, everybody. And don't forget, if you live in the Toronto area, this coming weekend, March 15th to 17th, 2019, I will be at Toronto Comic-Con at the Metro Toronto Convention Center, pimping out my new book, Side Scroller. This is a novel I wrote all by my little self. It's an adventure romance that takes place in a world that runs entirely on video game logic, and I will be in great company there at Toronto Comic-Con. I will be among authors such as my good friend Amanda Rose, who wrote the Fire Fury Frontier and Fire Fury Freedom books, as well as E.K. Johnston, who wrote Star Wars Queen's Shadow. That's right, I'm in excellent company. You can come meet all these authors, including myself, right here at Toronto Comic-Con. Pick up a copy of our books for your very own. You shall not be disappointed. So that has been this bite-sized thumb together, which is probably not as bite-sized as I thought it was going to be, because this Space Stone has seen some shit. I'm Andrew Fantasia. I'll see you here next time, and until then, adios.